آمين. وصلى الله تبارك وتعالى وسلم على سيدنا محمد سيدنا وسندنا وحبيبنا وشفيعنا ومولانا صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه وأزواجه وذرياته أهل بيته ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين وبعد. So we continue today with our Heroes of Islam series, hopefully finishing out on the story of Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam. So please bear with me. We have somewhat of a new setup with the live stream. Somebody, one of the brothers who took classes from me a couple of years ago, he graciously sent me a new mic, so let me know if the audio quality is any better than it has been in the past. But where we left off was essentially talking about the Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam having interpreted the dream of the king of Egypt in a way that the king knew was correct, and thereafter having requested that the king look into the affair of the accusations of the ladies who cut their hands when he was sent to jail. So he did so, and he saw that Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam was free of any blame in the accusations. And we also finished up the story of Sayyidina Zulaykha, who, part of her story is told in the Quran, and the other part is then narrated by tradition. So one of the really deep things that Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam does is that after these things are wrapped up, the king says, bring him to me. I want to put him in my employ. That I had all these smart people, quote unquote, who were in my privy council. And when I needed them to give me this very important piece of advice, they're unable to do so. Who is this person who kind of like pulled the rabbit out of the hat when I needed him most? Bring him to me, and let's put him in my employ as well. Astakhlishu li nafsi. I want him to report directly to me. And so when the king finally came face to face with Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam, he says to him, he says, Innaka ladayna, innaka al-yawma ladayna makinun amin. He says, this day you have a firm position with us, and we trust you. And so Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam then says to him, he says that then my proposition is this, is that you make me the in charge of the treasury. You make me the exchequer, the chancellor of the exchequer, meaning this whole plan that we have to harvest this bumper crop and save it up for 7 years, for the 7 years that will follow afterward, that'll be really harsh. Make me the one in charge of that project. And he does so. He says, "Inni hafizun alim." He says that I'm the one who will protect, and I'm the one who knows about how to account for things. And this is, by the way, something very important, that the people who are in charge of the money, the people who are in charge of the resources, how they come and go, those are important people. Sayyidina Abu Ubaidah ibn al-Jarrah used to do this work for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and here we see that a Nabi himself, it's a type of work worthy of a Nabi. And anyone who's familiar with the accounting world in America knows that if your accountant is a good person, things can go very right. And if your accountant is an evil person, they can go very wrong. And sometimes evil people keep evil accountants on purpose for that reason. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us. So we continue with the story. And the story is that when these 7 harsh years hit, so now fast forward 7 years later, the drought and qaht hits basically the entire region. So the brothers of Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam, they also are hit by the drought. And imagine that's 11 brothers, all with their families and with their parents as well. And they have a need for quite a bit of food stuff in order to feed everybody. So what happened was that they heard that Egypt has full stores of grain, and it's a place that you can go get grain from. So they came and petitioned him as the exchequer to give them some sort of allotment or to buy or sell or trade with them. فَدَخَلُوا عَلَيْهِ فَعَرَفَهُمْ وَهُمْ لَهُ مُنْكِرُونَ. So when they entered into his court, he knew right away like who these people are, but they had no idea who he was. I mean, it's completely out of their radar. They probably figured he probably died a slave a long time ago. Slaves, unfortunately, that are overworked don't really have a very long life expectancy, and they definitely don't turn into a chancellor of the exchequer in Egypt very often. And so what happens is that he strikes up a conversation with them. They get to know each other. He's like, hey, tell me, where did you come from? Who are you? Tell me about your family. Tell me about, like what the situation is, where you're from, etc. And they get to talking, and they say, they mention that we have like, we're 11 brothers, and he's like, where's the 11th brother? And they're like, he's not with us. He's like, do me a favor, next time when you come back, make sure to bring him with you. Don't you see, ألا ترون أني أوفي الكيل وأنا خير المنزلين? Don't you see that I give full measure, meaning you're buying grain from me, and there's nowhere else you're going to be able to buy it from. And for the regular price, I'm giving you full measure, which it's a deal you're not going to find anywhere else. وأنا خير المنزلين, and I'm like the best of hosts for you. So he says also, if you don't bring him, if you don't, فَإِلَّمْ تَأْتُونِي بِهِ فَلَا كَيْلَ لَكُمْ عِنْدِي وَلَا تَقْرَبُونَ. He says, and if you don't bring him to me, if you don't all of you come, then I'm not going to give you any measure of grain with me, and I'm not going to give you audience again. So they said, look, his father is a little sensitive because of certain things that happened in the past about letting him go, and but we will entice him. We will sanurawidu anhu abahu. And it's funny, rawada yurawidu is the same verb that was used earlier in the story to describe the Zulaykha's tempting of Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam. So we'll entice his father in order to let him come with us. وَإِنَّا لَفَاعِلُونَ. Don't worry, we'll get it done. You seem very interested in meeting our brother, and we're very interested in getting grain, so we'll make this thing happen. And so Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam then he says to his workers, he says that when you're loading their grain onto their animals, make sure that the things that the things that they traded for the grain, make sure that those things are returned to them as well. Meaning, give them the grain for free, and and make it such that they know that we're the ones who put it back. We're the ones who gave it back to them. What's the point of that? The point is now they have two options. This person is going to give them a lot of free stuff, or they're going to get nothing at all, and they're not going to be able to petition him again. And so when they got back home, they basically they said that, look, our father, we have to take our brother with us next time. Otherwise, we were told that we're not going to get any grain, and so send him with us, and we'll take good care of him, and we'll feed our families as well. And so he then asked them, he says, should I trust you again with him, just like I trusted his brother with you before, Yusuf? And then he says something very beautiful, because obviously this is not a joke to him. He knows, he has a feeling, he knows what's going on. He has premonitions as a Nabi, as a prophet, of what happened in the past, but he doesn't have like full proof in order to condemn them. And so he says, hell, آمنكم عليه إلا كما أمنتكم على أخيه من قبل فالله خير حافظا وهو أرحم الراحمين. He said that now you're asking me to trust you with him again, like I trusted your brother, trusted you with his brother before, Yusuf. but because it's a necessity, it's a need. He needs to. They need to go and get that grain. Otherwise, they're going to starve. How are they going to feed their families? So he says an expression which is a very beautiful expression, which is what? فَاللَّهُ خَيْرٌ حَافِظًا وَهُوَ أَرْحَمُ الرَّاحِمِينَ. Everybody should remember this expression. فَاللَّهُ خَيْرٌ حَافِظًا وَهُوَ أَرْحَمُ الرَّاحِمِينَ. فَاللَّهُ خَيْرٌ حَافِظًا وَهُوَ أَرْحَمُ الرَّاحِمِينَ. Meaning Allah is the best of protectors, and He is the most merciful of the merciful. Meaning what? Meaning like, it doesn't make sense for me to trust you with Him anymore. However, on the flip side, we can't just let all the family starve to death. So here, take him. And Allah is the best protector, and He's the most merciful of the merciful. He knows that what difficulty we're in right now, and I don't really seem to have much of a choice in this matter. So go ahead and take him. فَاللَّهُ خَيْرٌ حَافِظًا وَهُوَ أَرْحَمُ الرَّاحِمِينَ. Allah Ta'ala is the best of protectors, and He is the most merciful of the merciful. And this is something also we've seen from the ulama and from the mashayikh. This is part of their awrad, their du'as of protection in the day. If you have to go out, people are trying to stay away from public places. They're trying to social distance. It's not just coronavirus. There's all sorts of other stuff that happens in life. Whatever difficulty or danger or peril that you find yourself thrust into, this is we follow the sunnah of the Anbiya alayhim salam, and we say these words, and Allah Ta'ala, we seek His protection through them. فَاللَّهُ خَيْرٌ حَافِظًا وَهُوَ أَرْحَمُ الرَّاحِمِينَ. And so this is like the first thing that transpires, this conversation, when they get back home. And then what happens is something interesting, is that after that they open up their packs, and they unload their animals, and they find that their stuff that they bought the grain with was returned to them. قالوا يا أبانا ما نبغي هذه بضاعتنا ردت إلينا ونمير أهلنا ونحفظ أخانا ونزداد كيل بعير ذلك كيل يسير. He says that look, you're getting all tense and worried about all of this. But we just opened up our packs and found that our stuff has been returned to us. What else could we want? They're saying, what else could we want? This is our stuff that was returned to us. And if we go back, we will be able to feed our families. Namiru ahlana. Mara yamiru means to. Al-miratu means to feed. And he says, وَنَحْفَظُ أَخَانَا. And we promise we'll protect our brother. And if anything, we will increase one camel load of goods, because he's going to ride a camel as well, and then his camel will be also laden with goods, with grain. And he goes that they say that's kail yasir. He says that's a very easy measure and a very cheap measure of grain that we're going to receive for very little effort. He says that Sayyidina Ya'qub alayhi salam says, I won't send him with you until you give me a mawthiq, meaning a covenant by Allah Ta'ala, that you will bring him back to me, except for the only way I'll forgive you is if all of you are surrounded and overwhelmed. And once they gave him their covenant, he says, Allahu alama naqulu wakil. That then now we've all promised to one another this covenant, and Allah Ta'ala, then we trust Him to discharge and fulfill this promise. And so he says something also that's really important. He says that, oh, my dear sons, don't enter from one gate, rather enter from various different gates. Meaning what? When you cross into the borders of Egypt, there are checkpoints that you enter through. He says, don't all enter at once. He says, enter through different checkpoints separately. Why? Because when you have a large group of men entering, it will arouse suspicion. And oftentimes when dealing with the police, things go wrong, which unfortunately some of us have, through no fault of our own, realized at some time or another in our lifetimes. And further than that, So if some group of people is held, at least all the eggs are not in one basket, that the entire endeavor will sink, the entire operation will sink, that some will get through, and then they'll be able to go and help the others and free the others, etc. And Allah Ta'ala mentions in this story, He says, وَمَا أَغْنَى عَنْكُمْ مِنَ اللَّهِ مِنْ شَيْءٍ إِنِ الْحُكْمُ إِلَّا لِلَّهِ عَلَيْهِ تَوَكَّلْتُ وَعَلَيْهِ فَلْيَتَوَكَّلِ الْمُتَوَكِّلُونَ. Sayyidina Yaqub tells his brother, and Allah Ta'ala, reminds us about this, that all of this good planning that we're doing, it's not going to protect you from Allah Ta'ala at all, or it doesn't free you from need from Him at all. But it is the proper way of doing things, the good adab of doing things. He says, otherwise, in reality, the rule and the decree only belongs to Allah. And I trust in Him, and let the people who place their trust in Him. And I find this also very, I guess, important and relevant to the situation we're in with Corona, because you have two extremes where some people are going to say like, oh, well, cancel everything, stay home, don't do this, don't fast because, you need your immune system at tip-top shape, in order to fight the disease, and don't give zakat, and don't give sadaqah, and don't do this and don't do that and whatever, and they just their entire reaction is just to shut down. And that's not really going to help anything. If Allah Ta'ala wants to take you down, He's going to take you down anyway. That's not a healthy response and healthy reaction. And on the flip side, there are some people who are, their response to all of this is that open the masajid and let's pack everybody in as tight as we can, and forget about social distancing, and forget about masks, and forget about all this stuff. If we're gonna die, we're gonna die anyway. This type of hard-nosed fatalism, and that's not cool either. Even the Prophet ﷺ didn't practice that. And if you want to front like you're deeper than the Prophet ﷺ in your tawakkul and in your trust in Allah Ta'ala, that's just a joke. I mean, that's not something that should be taken seriously. Rather, the happy medium is what you do what you're gonna do. And you do what you have to do. More importantly than that, you do what is your requirement to Allah, to His Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to the Book of Allah Ta'ala, to the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to your families, to your neighbors, to your friends, to yourself, but you do it in the smartest way possible. So when things start to ease up and the massages start to open up again, you still until vaccines are widely distributed or whatever, we get to some place where things can be somehow safer and closer to quote unquote normal. Don't shake hands with people for a while. Don't give hugs to everybody you see in the masjid for a while. Do cover your face. Grab your turban, grab your niqab, your hijab, your face mask, all of those things. Do cover your face. And don't be that person who's just ignoring all of these things. If Sayyidina Yaqub alayhi salam is going to tell his sons that to enter Egypt from different gates, then who are you that you don't, you're not going to plan and take cautiousness when you do things and plan properly. And he himself says he says that you entering through different border checkpoints, it's not going to help you at all from Allah Ta'ala. It's not going to free you of need from Him at all. But you plan your best, and then you trust in Allah Ta'ala, and whoever wants to trust, let them place their trust in Allah. So they went back to Egypt in the way their father instructed them, and they knew that their planning and plotting wouldn't help them from Allah Ta'ala at all. Rather, this was just something that Sayyidina Yaqub felt inside that he should do, that to try to do things the easy way rather than to try to do things the hard way, which is a very unfortunate tendency in many religious people. But it's definitely not the Sunnah. The Prophet ﷺ's Sunnah is if there's a way of doing things that's easy and a way that's hard, he would always pick the easy way, except for if it involved angering Allah Ta'ala or breaking His divine commandments. And so Allah Ta'ala says that He just wanted to go easy on his boys, and Allah Ta'ala said He has great knowledge from the knowledge that we bestowed Him with. And many people just don't understand. There's a subtlety in this and a wisdom in it that they just don't get. So the brothers entered into the court of Yusuf, and they sent their brother forward, Binyamin, the full brother of Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam, to go and meet with him as well. And he says to him kind of quietly, privately, he says that he says, "Look, it's me. It's your brother Yusuf, and you no longer have any need to grieve about, what had happened in the past or the way your brothers treat you." And so what happens is that he keeps him with him, and then when it's time for them to go, he loads up the packs of grain with the brothers so that they can go back to their homes, and he hid or he placed the golden chalice of the king in the pack of Binyamin, his brother. And then when the brothers were about to leave, a mu'adhin, but not the mu'adhin that calls the adhan of the prayer, but just here the word mu'adhin is used in the general sense. The crier, he calls out that, "Oh, you caravan, all of you are thieves." And what happens is in the din and the fuss, the soldiers and guards come and surround them. And so the brothers are confused. They said, "Well, you accused us of being thieves. What are you missing? What are you accusing us of stealing?" They say that we're missing the chalice of the king, and whoever brings it to us will give them the reward of an entire camel load of grain. Ana bihi za'im. Sayyidina Yusuf say, "I guarantee that reward. We need to find that chalice again." And they say, "By Allah, tallahi." And tallahi is the ta of qasam. People usually use the waw of qasam, wallahi, by Allah. The ta of qasam is for ta'ajjub. It's to express like being amazed or like taken aback. And it says that that we didn't come here to cause mischief, and that we're not thieves. And so they say, "Okay, well, you're talking a big game, like you're innocent. Tell us something. Tell us what do you think if we catch you with the whoever we catch having stolen the chalice of the king? What should the punishment of that person be?" They say that in our custom, the punishment is that person is the punishment, meaning that person who's caught stealing will be then lawfully taken as a slave in punishment. And this is how we punish the transgressors. So dramatically, they start searching the brothers one by one before searching Binyamin, the brother of Yusuf alayhi salam's stuff. And then finally, the last camel they search is the one of Binyamin, and they bring out the chalice from Binyamin's stuff. And Allah Ta'ala says, "Look how we plotted for Yusuf alayhi salam. Look how we plotted in his favor. Now the tables are completely turned. They stole him from his father. They lied and took him out from his father, and they roughed him up, and they threw him in the bottom of the well and sold him into slavery. And now it's the other way around. He has the entire state apparatus of Egypt." And it's very interesting. The word Misr in Arabic, it literally means city. The idea is that like it is the archetype of civilization. It is the major world empire of the ancient world in a way that Sumeria never was, even though Sumeria can claim to be an empire older than it, but it completely dominates and overwhelms anything that the world had seen until that time. And he's in charge of the entire machinery of state. And now he has his brothers, and he has them bad. So Allah Ta'ala says that, "Look how we plotted and planned for Yusuf alayhi salam. He never would have been able to take his brother under the rule of the king of Egypt, except for through our planning, and through our mashia, and through our desire." Allah Ta'ala says that we raise the ranks of those who we wish. and above everyone who has knowledge, there is another one that has even more knowledge than him. And all of them are underneath Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All of them are underneath the knowledge of Allah. And so we ask Allah ta'ala when making the Mubarak tadhkirah and remembrance of the plan of Allah ta'ala, that Ya Allah, in your plan, that you're the only one who understands, and you're the only one who can come up with it, and you're the only one who can make it happen. Ya Allah, in your plan, raise our ranks and make us from amongst those who end up on top, rather than those who are, who are spiritually and physically and mentally thrown to the dogs, socially, politically thrown to the dogs and ripped up in this world and the hereafter. Waliyadu billah. We place our trust in you, Ya Allah. So in their frustration and their conflagration, they say something like, oh well, if he's a thief, then his brother before him was a thief as well. It's interesting that Tafsir Jalalain, it's mentioned actually that the thing that they're referring to is that there was an object which was a statue made out of gold that belonged to his grandmother, to the father of his mother, right? Because his paternal grandmother, right? So his father is Yaqub alayhi salam and his grandfather is Ishaq, so they're not going to have statues in the house, obviously. But his mother, her father, he had a statue made out of gold, and so he took it and he basically smashed it because of his hatred of idol worship and the enthusiasm of being a small kid with a righteous bent, mashallah. And so what happens is they're like, well, if Binyamin is a thief, his brother stole something once before him as well. What can we do? Like, we had no idea this was going to happen, but so Allah Ta'ala says that that Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam, he hid. He had enough wherewithal to hide his anger and annoyance at this statement inside of himself, and he didn't show it to them, which is good. This is not a type of deception. You don't have to let everybody get a reaction out of you for stuff. People will say things to get a reaction out of you. You don't have to give them the reaction that they want. And Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam is smart enough to be able to. He's smart enough to be able to hold that in, and it's a measure of emotional intelligence, and it's a measure of character and hilm, forbearance, that he was able to do that. And all of us could use a little bit of that as well. And he just said to himself, with regards to his brother, he says that today you're in the worst possible position, and Allah knows. Allah knows, that the thing that you said is completely off base and completely without any merit. Meaning, what, you're going to accuse him of being your brother Binyamin of being a thief, and say his brother before him is a thief? Why? Because he an idol? Like, that's just bogus. But he just kept it inside. He swallowed it. They say, oh, mighty one of Egypt, Ya ayyuhal aziz, and that word aziz is actually the title that his master had from before him when he was initially sold into slavery into Egypt. They say, oh, Aziz of Egypt, his father is a very, very old man. He says, take one of us in his place. We see that you are from the Muhsinin. We see that you're a man of grace. Meaning what? His father is going to be very distraught that we don't bring him back. We promised him that we would bring him back. So take one of us as a slave in his place. Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam says, Ma'adallahi. He says that we seek refuge in Allah Ta'ala, that we should take into slavery anyone except for the one who stole our things. And if we did so, then we would be transgressors. We would be from the people of dhulm. So when they فَلَمَّا اسْتَيْأَسُوا يعني يَئِسُوا, when they gave up hope that he was going to come to any other settlement than what they had right now, خَلَصُوا مِنْهُ اسْتَيْأَسُوا خَلَصُوا نَجِيًّا, they went to a place far away so that they could speak privately amongst themselves. And so the eldest of them, the eldest of them said, the kabiruhum. So the word kabir here, the mufassirin mentioned that it's either the eldest, which is Reuben, or it is the one who was the leader amongst them, which is Judah. Judah is one of the brothers and the tribe of the tribe of the children of Israel, the subt from the Asbat, that in fact the Jews are named after. His name is Yehuda, and so Yehudi means Jew, even though that's just the name of one tribe of the tribes of Israel, and their kings would come from Yehuda as well. So the biggest or the greatest of them says that, don't you know, your father took a heavy covenant upon you by Allah, that you would bring this boy back, and you also, all of us were all aware. You all know what we did with Yusuf alayhi salam. And he says that I'm not gonna go back home. I can't show my face again until my father gives me permission to come back, or Allah Ta'ala Allah Ta'ala gives us Binyamin, and that he gives us, our father gives us permission to come back because he got his son back. Wallahu khairul hakimin. He says, I can't show my face to my father again. And so the rest of the brothers, they went back to their father and they said, oh, my father, your son stole, and we didn't, we had no idea, and that this was going to happen, and we're not giving you a testimony or a report of what happened except for that which we know. And we had no idea when we gave you the covenant. We had no idea of the unseen that this was going to happen. And he says, go, if you want to, you can go and ask the city that we were in, and you can go ask the people in the caravan that we traveled with. And indeed, we are telling the truth. And so Yaqub alayhi salam is very heartbroken at this point. And he says, Bal sawwalat lakum anfusukum amran. He said, no, rather, this is your own egos and your own nufus have made something look beautiful to you, meaning that this is like, you think like, your explanation is like a proper explanation. So whatever, he says, I don't accept it from you, essentially. For sabrun jamil, all I can do is be patient without making any complaints. And maybe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bring them, both Yusuf and his brother, all of them, and he has all knowledge, and he's the one who is the most wise. So he turned away from them, and he said, how much grief, he says, ya asafa, how much grief I have, ala Yusuf wa biyaddat aynahu. He loved this beautiful son of his that he lost, and he cried until his eyes had become white. It's as if, like, as the pupils of his eyes had been just withered away. And he filled with grief. And the brothers still don't get it. They're saying, in their amazement, by Allah, you will keep mentioning Yusuf again and again, until you push yourself to death, or until you die yourself. حتى تكون حرضا يعني مشرفا على الهلاك, until you push yourself to the brink of death, or تكون من الهالكين, or that you actually die a death itself. He says, don't talk to me about any of this. He says, إنما أشكو بثي وحزني إلى الله. He says that I only all I can do is complain about my sorrows and my grief to Allah Ta'ala, and I know something from Allah Ta'ala that you don't know. And so he says to his sons, "Oh my dear sons, go back and look for Yusuf and his brother, and seek information about them. And don't ever give up hope in the mercy of Allah Ta'ala. Indeed, no one gives up hope in the mercy of Allah Ta'ala except for those who don't believe, because the only one who could give up hope in Allah Ta'ala is the one who doesn't know who He is in the first place." So when they entered back to the court of the Aziz of Misr, who is their brother Yusuf, but they didn't know, they say, "Oh Aziz, we have been touched, and our families have been touched by harm, the harm of hunger, and we came with like all that we could bring, all of our property that we have, and we know it's not really something good. Like it's not something that anyone would want to buy or sell or trade. Bida'atun muzjah, like second-rate goods. We just got whatever we could to bring, and so buy it from us as if it's something of value, and give us extra grain on top of that as sadaqah, because Allah Ta'ala gives reward to the people who give in charity." So at this point, when they come completely broken, completely humbled and humiliated, he asked them a question. He says, "Do you guys know? You guys remember what you did to your brother Yusuf, and the way you treated his brother after he left, when you behaved with great ignorance, and they kind of look at him and they kind of think about it for a minute, and they say, are you Yusuf? Is it really you?" And he says, "I'm Yusuf, and this is my brother. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us. And whoever fears Allah ta'ala and is patient, indeed Allah ta'ala never wastes the reward of those people who do things with ihsan, those things who do worship Allah as if they see Him. And if they don't see Him, at least to know that He sees them." And this is a beautiful statement. It should be written in gold in our houses. He says, "إِنَّهُ مَن يَتَّقِ وَيَصْبِرْ فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُضِيعُ أَجْرَ الْمُحْسِنِينَ." People get frustrated and give up. It's like burning a candle for half an hour after Isha, and then being like, "Oh man, this night is gonna last forever." No, keep the candle burning. Inshallah, the sun will rise eventually. You just have to, everything has a natural turn that it has to go through. And so he says, "Innahu man yattaqi wa yasbir." Whoever fears Allah and is patient, steadfast, Allah Ta'ala never wastes the reward of the people who do good. Everything, big and small, that you go through for the sake of Allah Ta'ala, all of it is in a hisab, and it will all be totally worth it. All of it will totally be worth it in this world and in the hereafter. They say, "Qalu tallahi," they say by Allah in wonderment and amazement. They say, "By Allah, Allah has preferred you over us," meaning they themselves now see that He's better than them. They thought that that they were better than Him, and they said, "Why is our father wasting our time with him?" when they were kids. Now they themselves admit that Allah has preferred you over us. لقد آثرك الله علينا. And they said that in kunna la khati'in, indeed we were in manifest error and mistake. He says, "La tathriba alaykum al-yawm." He says, this day there is no vengeance on you, which is exactly the same thing that the Prophet ﷺ said when he conquered Makkah Mukarramah, and he was able to take vengeance from all of his enemies. He says, "La tathriba alaykum al-yawm antum tulaqa." This day there is no vengeance against you. You are free to go as you please. He says, "La tathriba alaykum al-yawm yaghfir Allahu lana wa lakum wa huwa arhamur rahimin." Say, may Allah Ta'ala forgive us and forgive you, and He is the most merciful of the merciful. He says, "Go take my shirt back to my father, and place it on his face, and his sight will return to him once he smells my scent. And then after that, bring the whole family back. Bring everyone, the women, the kids, everybody." So once the caravan left from Egypt, Sayyidina Yaqub alayhi salam said, "Inni la ajidu riha Yusufa Lola an tufannidun. He says that you guys are going to say I'm stupid and you guys are going to not believe me. But I feel I already can smell like the scent of Yusuf alayhi salam, that somehow he's coming. And so the people from his family who are taking care of him, the brothers are obviously in Egypt at this time. They say that oh, our father, this is like an old like you become old now. This is a like dementia that you're suffering from, that you keep mentioning this again and again. That you're in your old, like error in your old ways. So when the Bashir, who's the Bashir? The Bashir here is Yehuda. Yehuda himself carries the shirt himself. That when he entered the house and placed the shirt on the Mubarak face of Sayyidina Yaqub alayhi salam, his eyesight came back to him. And he said, didn't I tell you that I know from by Allah Ta'ala those things that you don't know? And they said, oh, our dear father, seek forgiveness for us for our sins. Indeed, we were people in manifest error and manifest mistake. He said, Yaqub alayhi salam said, I will seek forgiveness for you from my Lord. Indeed, he was the forgiving and the merciful. And when they all came to Yusuf alayhi salam, the entire family, and he brought close his mother and his father to him, and he said to them, udkhulu Misra insha'Allah aminin, that enter now into Egypt in safety and in security. This is an interesting point, actually. This is in the Quran. This is the Misr is the only country which is named by name, and this is a great honor for the Egyptians, that their country is named in the Quran. This is enter into Misr, inshallah, and you will be from those who are in safety and security. And he raised his two parents to sit on his throne with him, and all of them. Then they made sajda in front of him, meaning what? That they bowed in front of him, not the sajda of prostration, which is the sajda of worship, but they bowed in front of him. Now, in our Sharia, that type of greeting is not permissible. And if a person means worship through it, then it's kufr. These, obviously, the family of Yusuf alayhi salam didn't mean worship from it, and in their Sharia, it wasn't made impermissible. But there's a difference. It's not kufr until you intend worship, but it's all the same haram one way or the other in our Sharia, although it wasn't in theirs. So they bowed themselves in front of him, and he says, "Oh, my dear father, this is the explanation of the dream that I saw from before, that I asked you about as a kid, and you told me not to tell your brothers." So this is the interpretation and the explanation of that dream. He said, my Lord has made it come true, and he's been good to me. He's been good to me, and he brought me out of prison, and he brought all of you from the Badia, min al-Badu. He says he brought all of you from the Badia, all of you from the desert, after Shaitan had caused dissent between me and between my brothers. Indeed, my Lord is gentle in those things that he wishes. And indeed, he is all-knowing and all-wise. He says then, in thanks to his Lord, he says, "Oh my Lord," he says, "Rabbi qad ataytani min al-mulki." Oh my Lord, you gave me dominion, wa 'allamtani min ta'wil al-ahadith, and you gave me the knowledge of interpreting dreams. You're the one who created the heavens and the earth. He said, "Fatir as-samawati wal-ardi, anta waliyyi fi ad-dunya wal-akhirah." You are my guardian in this world and in the hereafter. He says, "Take me back in a state of submission to you, and join me with the salihin, with the people of righteousness," meaning with my fathers Yaqub and Ishaq and Ibrahim alayhi salam, and all of the other prophets. And to end the story, because our time is up and it's almost time for iftar where you are, they say that the king of Egypt, when Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam will finally pass away, it's mentioned in the books of tafsir that he actually makes wasiyah that that Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam should be buried. His body should be taken to the headwaters of the Nile, and he should be buried upstream so that the water passes by him and brings barakah to Egypt. And Allah knows best. Obviously, our brothers and sisters who are from Nablus will disagree with that report from the Mufassirin, that there's also mazar that's maintained in Palestine in Nablus, which is also the shrine of Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam. Wherever he's buried, Allah knows best. Wherever he's buried, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us from the barakat of his story that we can take from its wisdoms, and give us patience and sabr and taqwa and the fear of Allah ta'ala. كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون, that this fasting was prescribed to you like it was prescribed to those before you, so that you can learn to fear Allah ta'ala, be aware of Allah and cognizant of him in all things. That if you can hold yourself back from the things that are permissible while fasting, then inshallah when your fast is not there, you can hold yourself back from the things that are impermissible. Allah give us all of this from his grace and mercy. Wa sallallahu tabarak wa ta'ala wa sallama ala sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.